Hello, good evening and welcome to another Webster report on this, the 9th of February 2025. Alex and I are in a secret location, aren't we, Alex?
Proper secret.
So it's a proper secret valley. Absolutely beautiful. It's been a pleasure to be able to come here, possibly be doing some talks and things like that down here where we're able to meet with these people, and they've extended their friendship to us, which is what me and Alex have been doing with this podcast. We've been making a lot of friends, and people like listening to what we do, people like listening to what we have to say. So what I would say is, if you don't like listening to what we say, or if it's directed at me, as in recent weeks, there's been personal attacks. And I mean personal, with private conversational information being splattered about, not being named. I'm not being named, but we know who it was aimed at. The people who were messaging me, asking me what was going on, I have no idea what's going on, mate. What I would say is, people who project their insecurities onto others by trying to take other people down to elevate themselves, it's a sad situation, especially when it comes from somebody you've classed as a friend. So I always found it, when I was younger and I was growing up, I always found that my friends' stuff, what they'd do, like say I was 5-year-old when I remember one of these, and I did a colouring in at school, and I thought, well, that's really good. I really like that. I've done a good job. I looked over at my friends and his looked better. So now mine was rubbish. So I didn't want to show it off to anybody, because what if they criticise it? What if they call me names? What if they have a go at me? Those insecurities stay with you throughout your childhood and adulthood. So I've always been able to write poetry, lyrics, stories. I've always been able to do that. I've enjoy doing it, and I published a poem, and I got loads of good comments, loads of things, but one was an attack. Now that was me being creative, and this other fellow was a creative, so why have a pop at me? I've still no idea, not really bothered anymore. But it's sad, because you class those people as friends and they turn and they stab you in the back. He's not the first, maybe he won't be the last, but we move on. So the disclaimer before we do start, and Taylor's already rearing to go with whatever presentation he's got to do for us, as well as us chatting about general things. The disclaimer is, if you don't like what we talk about, if you think we're ramming the Bible down your throat, click off and don't come back. It's dead simple. Dead simple. Anyway, with that said...
Well, let me add something.
Oh, you, of course.
People here who can't remember the Beatles, they did a lot of tracks. They weren't everyone's cup of tea. And obviously they sang the classic track, All You Need Is Love. No, right, love is all you need. And various, configurations of All You Need Is Love. Now, this man here, he's not my biological brother. I know we look alike. Right, he's not my biological brother.
You're fatter than me.
I know. But Laurel and Hardy, hey up. People can decide which is which, right? But he's my brother in Christ. So I value him. Even if I only listened to All You Need Is Love on repeat, and that's a woefully inadequate song. It's woefully inadequate, because how many other things could you say than All You Need Is Love? And yet, essentially, in the shared human condition of ours, we see people trampling each other in the world, and we see government officials, stomping all over us. And one thing we do know is we need solidarity. And human personalities, whoever we are, we've all got an edge, and potentially edge can lead to conflict. Not all conflict is bad. So what we're looking at here is trying to produce a constructive vision. And with us, it's sort of the Christian faith's a bedrock of that. But we've got lots of angles into truth, a fallen world, which even if you're not a Christian, you can acknowledge that there's a very corrupt system. So don't call it a fallen world, call it a very corrupt system. We've got at least that in common. Even if you're a hippie or a pagan, all you need is love. From our perspective, it's a woefully inadequate, incomplete message, but it's got an element of truth to it. So for me, all I want to say is let's try our best, notwithstanding the differences, to be on the same page, because at the end of the day, what tends to happen with conflict is it escalates, it gets out of hand, and it doesn't tend to serve a long-term positive purpose. What we want to do is build each other up as far as possible, and that doesn't mean, sometimes papering over the cracks and having an honest conversation, a straight conversation. But I think when those things happen, they should happen. It's like, I remember one time, right? This was really interesting. I got told off by my manager. I hope she's not watching now, my ex-manager. Got on really well, but she tried to rebuke me in front of the whole office. And regardless of whether she was right in point of fact, it made me look very small. Now, I happen to think I was right, and she wasn't, and she thought she was right, but she could pull rank. She had authority over me. So she made me look foolish. And so I just took her into a side room, even though she was the manager. And I just said, please don't do that ever again in public. And I'll tell you what I said. I said, I'm an introvert. And I also gave her credit. I said, you're an extrovert, which means an introvert can be highly wounded by a comment made in front of other people. And an extrovert probably just water off a duck's back, rough and tumble. Sometimes the standards by which we judge are our own standards, and we can forget that other people's framing reference is different. So, for me, it's a case of, me, Paul, try and be Switzerland, neutral in any war.
Alexander DeWitt, Switzerland.
Yeah. So for me, it's like, I'm not saying let's have a love-in. Let's not do John and Yoko in the bedding, right? We've got 2 beds behind us here, mate. It's just like, what's going on? Nothing dodgy, trust me.
Morecambe and Wise, mate. Morecambe and Wise.
Like that.
But to earn.
But at the end of the day, thanks everyone for tuning in. And we also have a constructive discussion here, and we appreciate that there's a power differential. If you're not running it, your voice is a little bit more on the sidelines, but speak up. But let's make this time together on a Sunday evening a productive one if we can. That's all.
Very well said, sir. Just going back over that, it's when you it was information that had been shared in a private conversation, and there was being used just like a mental health trigger.
Right.
I could do that. I could have easily started all that stuff because I've heard stuff, but it's not in my nature to do that. So it was just sad and disappointing that somebody you class as a friend that would do something like that, and for what reasons? To elevate themselves, to get clicks, to get likes, to let people laugh and make you feel better, make you feel relevant. There's no need for all that. But, it is what it is. So without further ado, how are we doing, sir?
Doing all right. Finally got my laptop back. Feels good.
Yeah, did the FBI give it you back?
Yeah, the FBI did its thing, man. Yeah, I didn't end up like Hunter Biden.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Mind you could get a pardon, can't you? As long as you've done nothing wrong, you can get a pardon.
Yeah. Although, pardons may be a little bit more than you might think they are. They can mean certain things. But anyway, so before I get to the main thing, I just want to mention real quick. You mentioned Switzerland. Yeah, I'll just real quick. I just wanted to mention something about that. It came to my mind during the 90s. Israel was banging on Switzerland, claiming that they were hoarding not quote unquote Nazi stolen money, and so they were basically telling them that they need to pay up millions and millions of dollars, and the Swiss were basically saying, no, we were neutral in World War II. Well, guess what? A few days later, I forget what the name of the aircraft was. It was brought down. It was a big incident. It was a Swiss aircraft. I forget the name. As soon as that happened, as the Swiss got the message and they paid up to Israel, to the so-called Holocaust victims. So yeah, that's even the Swiss can't get away.
So, what you've said you had some sort of a presentation for us.
Yes.
So what
yes,
is it? What is it? What give us a little bit of an insight before you start it. So we, Alex may have some input into it as well. So what is it you're looking at? What have you got for us?
All right. Well, I want to do a presentation to everyone here, and it's not just YouTube, but to everyone and anyone who might be watching this later, about just thoroughly debunking the whole idea that Trump is Israel's friend, or that he's working with Israel or fighting for them or whatever, or is it, that he's a Jew and that he's working for the Zionists and all that. And I wanted to do a thorough debunking of that claim tonight, so that way that because honestly, I get kind of annoyed seeing that claim, because it's so ignorant. Because Trump has done so much for us. He puts up with all the crap from the libtards and the Marxists. We really don't need to be attacking him from our flank as well. It's already hard enough. It's like, imagine if you are a kid at school and you're getting bullied by like all the tough kids. And then on top of that, you got the teachers going at you and saying that you're a wimp because you're not standing up for yourself when you're like an introvert or something. And then on top of that,
can I ask a question just at this point before you continue? Just it'll help everybody. What sources will you be referring to make the case?
Mainstream media sources, actually.
Are they reliable?
Well, here's the thing. It's I forget what the term is. It's evidence against. It's like evidence against yourself. If it's so bad that even the mainstream is pointing it out, like say the Times of Israel or Haaretz or the Guardian or whatever, that should tell you just how just exactly what they think about it from their point of view, and that should tell you, and that should help tell you what you need to know. Because if they're admitting things flat out to the world in their own publications, that should tell you some things.
Yeah, they want us to know. They want us to know for some reason.
Yeah, they want.
We don't learn anything by accident. They want us to know stuff like that.
Yeah, for whatever reason. The reason can vary. It can be a positive or a negative reason. It all really depends on the situation.
Can you see the comments now, Taylor?
I can. Yes, I can.
Right. I'm just in case. I'm not asking you to comment or answer everything that comes up. It's just to keep the conversation going. So what things has Trump been doing this week that as you said, he's done a lot of good things. I mean, he's certainly making a lot of changes, and we see the reflection, because I said to you, I think it was last week and the week before, that Nigel Farage and Trump are very pally. And the way our government's acting, particularly Labour, now we've already had the Conservatives, nobody wants them back, but now they want to get rid of Keir Starmer. Trump and his cronies are jumping on that bandwagon to, bring Starmer into this. Getting rid of Starmer doesn't get rid of the Labour manifesto, so they want to go for elections, which UK Reform Party is now taking a lot of these seats. Labour have just postponed elections for a year on certain, I think it's about nine local elections. So because they want to put things in place. Now, is Labour putting things in place that UK Reform will eventually use? Because over here, I don't know if you've got anything similar in the Senate or in Congress, but over here, our members of Parliament, they have what they call parliamentary privilege. So they can tell us lies legally. They can tell us lies. They can promise us everything, Taylor. And then as soon as they're in office, they change everything, just like what Starmer's done. We had a £300 winter fuel payment taken off pensioners. Now, it's a bit of a moot point for me because, like I said, these pensioners aren't liable to pay for these bills. So the fact that they're taking it back, they can do, because they're not doing anything wrong legally. It's us that are acting wrong in this jurisdiction, which gives them the authority and the control. People are now starting to wake up and challenge this. We've just had a meeting downstairs where there's many people now. There's, as some of them were saying, there's too many of people now for them to just brush all this under the carpet, or to even just take one person out, because it doesn't matter. There's that many people. So have you got anything like that that's going on over there? And to add to that, where you saw Biden and Harris demolish and destroy America, you always, I don't know if it was you actually, but I knew Trump couldn't lose, because if you can't beat Biden and Harris, you'd have to cheat. And, 56 million people, I think, in America voted for Harris. If that's true, that is unbelievable, that, Taylor, because she couldn't run a bath. What these people are doing, we know who was actually running it. It's the same person that's been running it for 10, 15 years. That same party, the same issues, the same things that are coming through. So our government's now set up for, if we go for elections, it's more than likely, because of what Nigel Farage is saying, he's going to be a shoo-in. Now, that'll join England and America again. So then we've got Europe, who Keir Starmer's trying to drag us back into Europe through various ways. So we see, don't we, that the world is now swirling around, and it's all coming together, and we've all got to look over to the Middle East, because, as you said about Trump not being Israel's true friend, the pretending. Trump saying that they're going to take over the Gaza Strip and rebuild it and all this kind of stuff. Netanyahu's happy with that. But as you say, Israel's going to get turned on. And me and Alex know that Israel's going to get turned on as well. So try and join some of those dots for us if you can, mate.
All right. Okay. Well, I will say, let me just start off with this. I was planning tonight to not really talk about the last week's worth of news, and really more of an overall presentation of the topic. But
you get your chance for that, but let's have some dialogue as well.
Okay, fair enough. I'll talk about let's talk about the whole Gaza thing. Let's see here. Let me go on my presentation. Okay, so some things to keep in mind when we're talking about this whole oh my God, Trump is going to buy the Gaza Strip, blah 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 blah, and build hotels for Jared Kushner and all that stuff. We need to have a couple of precedents set, so that we can go off of the right context. Like basically the first principles that we need to keep in mind. Number one, the Greater Israel river-to-river expansionism project is dead forever. Number two, the U.S. will never fight another war or proxy war for what I call the shitty little states. Number three, the real Bibi Netanyahu was executed and Bidenized several years ago for his role in 9/11. Number four, the war in Gaza is a poorly staged wag-the-dog Q-op illusion, utilizing CGI crisis actors, fake blood, and theatrical deaths, which is all to wreck the shitty little state's stature in the court of world opinion. So basically, make everyone see them as nothing more than just a hindrance. Number five, a just and permanent deal for the Palestinian people has already been constructed with zero input from the shitty little state. Number six, Trump despises, or rather despised, past tense, Bibi Netanyahu, past tense because the bastard's gone. 7, Trump conceals a secret war against our greatest ally by making empty proclamations of love for the shitty little state and condemnation of anti-Semitism. And 8, Trump has repeatedly promised good things and a bright future for the Palestinians. Now, let's go ahead and just do a little comparison between what we are now and what would have been like if Madam President Hillary Clinton would have been president. First of all, we all would likely be dead by now. Second, we would have already been in World War III. The COVID psyop would have gone on would have gone on as they originally planned. The 5-year lockdowns, and then the Bill Gates chip, and of course we would be most likely in the now presidency of Big Mike Obongo, or they like to call Michelle Obama.
Big Mama.
Now, as for the Gaza Strip directly. The thing is that we need to also look at the context of what the Gaza Strip is like. Over the decades, it has been bombed and destroyed and torn to pieces by the shitty little state for obvious, for reasons that we already are well aware of. And even though that it's prime seaside location, any foreign investment in the place is just going to be nothing. It's going to be for losers. It's not going to amount to anything. So what do you do in a place that's been a perpetual war zone? Well, what you do is that you take it under the protection of the U.S. and you rebuild it so that way the Palestinians will have a good place to be able to both go and then later come back whenever it's fully finished. So this itself also helps to weaken Israel. You see, the thing about it is that what Israel always wanted out of Gaza, other than obviously expending the Palestinians, was their natural gas reserves. And but if America gets their hands on the Gaza Strip, then all that happens is that the bad guys never are able to get their hands on it, and then we can rebuild it and fix everything, and have the Palestinians have a nice place to live.
If I was in a court of law now, I'd say objection, Your Honour, speculation. So obviously mainstream media. So for example, Netanyahu is dead according to this source. Now I've not seen that in mainstream media.
Well, that's from mainstream media.
So these statements are all plausible and it builds a picture. But I think we need to establish definitely, clearly what the sources are. Is this your reading between the lines of all the disparate pieces of information, or have you gone to a source document that is outlining this and you're kind of in agreement with it? What's your process been of constructing the theory, the lens by which you're viewing this? Because that would help the viewers.
How have you joined these dots to come to these conclusions so other people can look at the same sources and draw their conclusions?
Okay, well, first off, I'll say that this is a process that takes a bit of training and a bit of endurance to be able to understand. It's because when you get in to analyzing current events, especially from the fifth generational warfare perspective, which I can do a separate presentation on proving that that's the case. But once you realize that, and you do a bit of training, being able to not only read between the lines, but also be able to put things in the right perspective and know exactly what the situation is that they're talking about. It really helps to put things in the right perspective, so that way you know that you're not just that you're not seeing things on the surface.
Right,
like for example,
Taylor, you remember Noam Chomsky? Much as we don't really rate him that much now, and he's in his 90s.
He's dead.
Has he passed?
He's gone now.
Right, yeah. So he wrote a propaganda model, and he looked at flak, media control, so on and so forth, and he was able to put forward a method which he called a phenomenological method, where you give close inspection to the facts, and you almost paint an outline. So when you see a silhouette of a shadow of somebody, and you can't really tell, you can't see the facial features, you can't see their eye colour, but you can work out from the outline, more or less, what the picture would be by reading between the lines. Now, that's an established method that Chomsky and Herman used called the propaganda model, which people could check out and they could kind of buy in and go, I see what you're doing there. It's like you join the dots, and you're joining the dots, and then suddenly there's a picture without the detail and without the colour. So I think the question like we're asking is, I appreciate that sometimes it's difficult when you're discerning something or you've got a sense for something, you don't always know in that moment where you got that knowledge from. It's a knack, but it definitely helps to be able to help other people join the dots, because otherwise what ends up happening is we make statements without backing up each claim. And then all that does, it leaves your flanks exposed, because people go, well, where did that come from? Or why is that the case? And if you can't answer it, you've left your flanks exposed. So have you got a specific method that you're using?
Well, it's hard to define what you mean by specific method, because it really comes down to just being able, just training your mind and your ears to be able to just be able to see things through a certain lens. After studying how things really work in the situation of the world as it is. So, for example, the last 4 years we've been, last 8 years rather, we've been under a military operation, and we always have to. And whenever you look at a headline article, you have to be able to look at things through that lens, but also present it from an unbiased point of view. Because obviously, if you put your own biases into it, you're automatically going to come up with something that favors your opinion. So
that's Chomsky. You just made that clear. Reading between the lines, look at the headline, deconstruct the headline, see does it add up. What else might account for the facts? So that's all cool. That's good.
Yeah. And by the way, Noam Chomsky was nothing more than a git. He was he was one of those globalist type people. He was not. Yeah, I wouldn't put any praise in that dude. Even James.
To be fair, he did write some interesting stuff, but the 9/11 stuff that I read, he was all for the mainstream thing, and I just knew that not to trust him then.
He fell off a cliff. With the first Gulf War, he was very, very good at highlighting some of the background mechanics with Iraq and Kuwait and forcing the oil prices down so that Iraq would invade, and that led to the pretext for invasion. Chomsky was very good for that early doors, and in critiquing a lot of American foreign policy at the time, particularly in Central America. He did a cracking job. And the proof of that is nobody would publish him other than Pluto Press. So, there was strong indicators at the beginning. Chomsky was quite a useful armchair journalist, did his research. But as you say, Paul, he fell off the cliff after 9/11. So along the line, he swallowed the whole chicken and choked on the bone.
Yeah.
He's like an Alex Jones type person, essentially. A halfway house that gains your trust and then leads you down the wrong rabbit hole.
Except that he was the leading linguist in the history of linguists compared to Alex Jones.
Linguist.
Well, yeah, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But yeah, as I was saying, that's really the frame of mind that you have to come to first in order to get to that point. And in order to get to that point, first you have to look into it. Are we under a military operation? Was Trump the one in charge the whole time? Is Q real? Is QAnon Q? I don't like the term QAnon, by the way, because that's a mainstream media created term. Q is the person who wrote the post, and the anons are the ones who responded and are the people in the community. They're like truthers. Yeah, the anons.
Then, mate, we didn't know what was going on. So just
you're cutting out.
Right, hold it there, Taylor.
Yeah, I can hear you.
We had a bit of a technical issue then, because we are in a valley in a secret place. Just go over your last few sentences again, there, please.
Oh my God, you're cutting. Oh, there we go. There you go. You're not cutting out now. Okay. So, as I said, the last couple of things I said is that I despise the term QAnon, because that's a mainstream Marxist CIA created term, just like conspiracy theory. Q and anon are not the same thing. Q is the person who is the military agent who wrote the posts, and anons are basically truthers, people who follow him and who analyze the posts and who make podcasts and stuff based off of the information. That's what quote unquote QAnon is. But it's not really an actual term. That's a CIA proxy term. that was used. Actually, interestingly enough, in 2019, 2020, when Q became too big for them to ignore. Because as you know, the mainstream media, their first method of attack is to ignore everything. Because if you don't give it publicity, well, then what happens? Nobody hears about it, and then it just stays in the fringe. But if it becomes too big, naturally, they have to address it by attacking it. Just like what they do with conservatives, they go and attack them like if they become too big. But as I said, if you want to be able to understand things from this point of view, you have to do a little bit of studying on the Q operation, and as well as on Trump. And not only that, but you also have to be able to put the current events in the context of history, because if you can do that, you can see a pattern. Because if you just look through things from a current viewpoint, you're just going to be like, oh, this is all just happening random. There's no precedent for any of this. But in fact,
you've got another good point and method. Well, pointed out that we're using a historical frame so that we can take a point and see how it's connected. So that requires vigilance, research, diligence. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Good, very good way to put it. Yes. And also to be able to know exactly, and also to be able to discern like what is garbage and what isn't as well, which is something that you get just by experience. Because because I didn't know what was garbage and what wasn't when I started. I fell for some stuff that that I've later retracted because I didn't do my proper research. Now things have now that I've gotten a lot more experience, I've changed my ways of going about things. But yeah, like I said, you have to put things in the proper historical context. It's like for example, if we're talking about people like to talk about the Q operation as if it's just some random new thing that just came out of nowhere, when in fact it's not. There have always been military white hats looking out for us, ever going back 100 years. I can give several examples of this. Like for one, the Venona intercepts from World War II, when the it's called the Army Signal Corps, the predecessor to the NSA, were monitoring the communications between Roosevelt and Stalin and Churchill, and was able to prove that communists were infecting the State Department and the rest of the cabinet of FDR. This information was then given to Joseph McCarthy, who used it then for his hearings, and that's how he was able to get all this information on all these hidden communists. That's just one example, and I could go on and on and on. So there has been always a precedent of good guys in the military looking out for us, doing what they can in order to keep us safe as much as they possibly can in their own way. Okay, and that's what.
Taylor, on that point, then, could you just elaborate what you think the relationship is between the deep state that's had a stranglehold since at least the assassination of Kennedy and the White Hats? Why the deep state has had the stranglehold, the strategy of the White Hats, why they didn't intervene sooner. Be very interesting to see your take on the background picture on that one.
Okay, well, I'll put it to you in a simple context. The bad guys are the CIA and the State Department. The good guys are the NSA. Now, obviously, you have, it's not 100% good or bad on both sides. You have some good guys in the CIA and you have some bad guys in the NSA. And but overall, just like how the Republican Party and the Democrat Party, the Republican Party was up until the 80s and the 70s was mostly the good party, and the Democrat Party was mostly the libtard Marxist party. It's kind of like that. Now, as for why the White Hats didn't intervene sooner, well, first of all, that's not entirely true. They did do things. As I said, they have been doing things on their own in order to mitigate disaster on multiple occasions. But the reason why that there wasn't this overt White Hat Q operation until Trump was simply because they didn't have the manpower. They didn't have their person in the White House. Because in order to make this work, they needed to find someone who fit very specific criteria. Not only do they have to be good at acting, they also had to be good at being able to have a public face. They had to be able to tell it how it is, while also being able to take flack from all of the libtards and the Republicans who would naturally be attacking you, as well as the mainstream media, and also be able to put up with the idea that you could easily be assassinated at any point. So there was very, very huge criteria that had to be met, and and on top of that, they had to get their man in the White House, because who are you gonna? Because here's the thing. All this information that they've been getting over the decades about the communists and the Marxists and the Zionists, the New World Order, the cabal, the deep state, whatever you want to call them, all this information was obtained without a warrant, which cannot be legally used in a court of law. So they had to get their man in the White House first. And who were they gonna give this information to? Roosevelt, Truman, Eisenhower, LBJ, Bush, Clinton? No, hell no. But by the time that they were able to get enough power to be able to try to act, it was their men was already, it was impossible. They tried with JFK, but look what happened with him. He got a bullet to the head. Joseph McCarthy, another one. They tried to go through him. That didn't, and look what happened with that. And it just goes on and on and on. So they realized at the point where Hillary was about to come in, they knew that this was the end game. They knew that this is exactly what the New World Order's end game was. That they were planning to finish their job and completely establish their world government and their Georgia Guidestones prophecy. So they knew that there was no point, that there was no waiting any longer. So they acted in 2016. They recruited Trump at least as far back as 2011. I suspect further back, and they had him be the face of the operation, get him in the White House by suppressing just enough voter fraud in 2016 for Hillary, for Trump to be able to get in, and thus the operation began. And here's the thing: Q told us that if the operation hadn't succeeded and Trump hadn't gone in 2016, they were not going to let this satanic witch Hillary Clinton get in the White House. And they said that they were planning to do the unthinkable, aka an overt coup, which aka a civil war, which wouldn't have been good. I'm sure you know that over the decades, that's happened in many countries, where when the globalists fully take over, the military people push back. This happened in Chile, this happened in Argentina, this happened in Spain, etc. It always ends up with a bloody civil war. And even if the good guys come out on top, you haven't won the hearts and minds of the people. At least half the population never accepts you because they didn't vote for you, because they're stuck in their quote unquote democratic system. So that's the thing. That's what it always comes down to, is you have to win the hearts and the minds of the people. That's what the deep state's always been good at. So I know it was a long-winded answer, but I hope that answered your question of why it took.
You did, Taylor, and I think it's a constructive exercise. So, pardon me for breaking in and grilling, and St. Paul grilling you with a couple of questions, because it helps to clarify. If you can express a method that other people can relate to, they can start to see how you join the dots. That's just as important as actual research documents, because if people can see a method, then they can copy that and say, actually, when I use that method, I can kind of see it. And that takes the debate forward, because there are other eyes on it that might be able to add something to your account as well. So it becomes a much more constructive, a collective exercise in all looking at the same thing with slightly different vantage points. So I appreciate you clarifying. You did a good job, mate.
Plus, it slows you down, so you articulate it better. You don't get excited and jump from subject to subject to subject, and you come across a lot more clearer and more authority. Do you get what I mean? Those explanations that you've just given is much better than saying, watch a video. Do you get that?
Yeah, understandable. I'm not the best at presenting myself. I'm still trying to get better at that. So, any tips I can get?
Right. You're doing all right. Don't worry.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. I appreciate the feedback. So,
well, remember, you got some feedback from the last show with a comment saying, "Great show, Webby Alex. Really enjoyed listening to Taylor." Now,
yep, and whoever made that comment, thank you. I appreciate that. I don't know. I forgot the name of the person.
Yeah, because you've slowed it down and you're more articulate. So, go on. Take us on to the next point.
Okay. So, now as far as the operation as itself goes, now Q came onto the scene back in, forget the exact month, but it was in late 2017. and he's made several thousand posts. And I know that it can be a bit of a nuance to try to go and read all of them. I personally haven't done that myself, just because I haven't had the attention span to do it. But there are several key ones to keep in mind when analyzing events, as well as looking at patterns, pattern recognition. You take a you take a statement, you run it through the patterns, and you see that if it makes sense. And once you've established that it does, then you can look at future events through that possible lens and say, okay, this has to do with this. I'll give an example. So when Q talked about in 2017 and 2018, he was talking about how there would be hundreds of senators, congressmen, and media moguls who would be resigning because they were because of various pressures by the good guys, and going forward, even nowadays you have this. Even nowadays you have this with this especially was the case back in 2019, 2020, 2021, going forward, where you had dozens and dozens and dozens of not only politicians, but journalists and even CEOs of big corporations resigning. I'm sure you remember this. There were so many resigning all at once, or were being replaced in either through election or through scandal. Once you see that and you trace it back to Q's post, as well as several other hints that he posted along the way, such as when he literally told us when John McCain was going to die, and told us the exact dates that it would be announced to the public. So we know that was a hit job by the good guys, John McCain. So once you've established that, go ahead.
Just let me interject here. Could it be plausible that information being leaked and coming out and being correct, because we just mentioned earlier about we're learning things and hearing things because these are the things that they want us to know. Is it plausible? Is it possible that could be part of a bigger picture to lull the American people into that false sense of security? Not that it is, but is that possible? Well,
here's the thing: is that there's precedent for that as well. But I'm going to go ahead and just try to debunk that. I'm going to go ahead and present the information that debunks that theory, because I consider that as well at the start. But then it really doesn't really hold up to scrutiny and pattern recognition. So going back to 2009 or 2012, it was during Obama's first term. He sacked hundreds of a couple hundred people from the military, all who were top generals and intelligentsia, who were conservative and were against the Marxism of the Obama administration. Essentially, you can look at these as the good guys. Most of these people were the people that were surrounding Trump when he got in office in 2017. The famous picture of him being surrounded by all those generals. Those were the same people that Obama fired because he knew what was coming. See, the thing is that the Q operation, they knew it was coming because these guys, the deep state people, they're able to see the signs. And they tried to do everything they could to quell it as fast as they could, but it was impossible because by the time they noticed, it was already too late. As far as the, and also I should also mention the reason they have all this information is because of the NSA. The NSA is where the good guys are at. That's why you had that freaking rat Edward Snowden come out and try to be a quote unquote whistleblower against the NSA. He was a CIA inside plant whose real goal was to get the NSA destroyed and have all of its surveillance power moved over to the CIA where the bad guys are at. He wasn't out here trying to look for our freedoms and trying to help us, know we're being surveilled on. No, he was trying to dismantle the organization where the good guys are, so that way the bad guys could have their same powers and use it for their own nefarious ends. So that's what it comes down to. And as I said, by the time that these people knew what they were up against, it was already too late.
Taylor, I've got a question for you here again on method. So, you were mentioning pattern recognition and the important principles of pattern recognition, and to check which data that's incoming is consistent with the pattern. You could see the pattern like an equation, right? Now, the thing like that is, it holds good most of the time. But like the phrase, it's the exception that proves the rule. If you imagine you had a really big circle and all the pattern recognition rules operate within the circumference of the circle, yeah, that can never predict for something incoming from outside of the circle. Yeah. So pattern recognition, in terms of probability and statistics, most of the time, maybe 999 times out of 1,000, is going to be an accurate prediction from the data you already have. But the interesting point is the one anomaly. So let's just say it's 10,000 and you have 9,999 confirmations. Or let's just say it's 999,999 and it's the millionth one that brings the whole system crashing down. So there is a slight issue of method with that approach to pattern recognition, because there's always the potential unexpected that we haven't banked on that could be a game changer.
Oh, that's always true. And that's why you should, and that's why I said before, that you always have to look at things from a non-biased point of view and be able to say, hey, could this possibly be an exception to the rule? You look into it, and then you look at the information inside of each event. And when this comes down to looking at each event individually, not throwing them all into a pot and saying that they all come out as the exact same. You have to look at them all individually, as well as look at the players involved, look at the look who's reporting it, who benefits from this information, and who exactly is affected by it. And then from there, you can analyze is this a part of that 99% pattern recognition? Is this fall in line? Like, for example, this is why I don't like to make exact predictions of future dates when something will happen, because you can be wrong. Like, for example, I thought that Hillary Clinton was going to be arrested before Trump was even elected president, but I turned out to be wrong on that, and I was going off of information. So there is that chance that that if you try to say certain things are factual without looking into things too closely, you can be wrong. But so that's why it's always good to have an open mind and know, hey, I could possibly be wrong about this, but look at the information and don't just assume things right when you see them. You can make you can make a good estimated guess, but until you're willing to, this is what we in the Anon movement call the 48-hour rule. We give an event about 2 or 3 days to rest. We analyze them. And then we come out saying, okay, is this part of the operation? Is this a PSYOP? Or is this actually genuinely real? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It does. And the only difficulty is you can never be 100% sure with somebody who's playing a long game.
Yeah. You also have to look at mathematical probabilities as well. If something, if something has such a low denominator chance of happening to the point of where it's not mathematically possible, or if it's like a 0.0000 etc. percentage, you can confidently really just count this out and say, okay, this is probably not going to be the case, because if you end up being wrong, then in a future event happens, you can be proven wrong. But every single time that we've made these predictions, we've pretty much always been right about it. We might get a couple of minor details wrong, but it comes down to, hey, we know what the overall plan is. We know where we're going to end up. It's just a matter of we don't have every single step of the plan along the way. It's exactly like a movie. When you have a movie and you can predict how the movie's going to end, like say the Terminator, for example, you can predict the Terminator is going to be destroyed and that Sarah Connor is going to get out safely. But you can't exactly predict all the steps and plot twists that'll happen along the way.
One more question, Taylor. Sun Tzu. You've heard of Sun Tzu in The Art of War.
Oh yes. You've
heard of decoying. Yeah. So a decoy. So basically, someone works out the pattern probabilistically from, say, 10,000 events which all corroborate the pattern. Then the decoyer comes along and knows what the next predictive step would be or might be, or sets one up that isn't the case, that aligns with the pattern, and then people follow it because that's the way the pattern appears to lead, and that's a decoy.
Yeah, that's a factor that the deep state has been using for many years. You know, they might put some plants in here to make you fall down that certain path. And, you know, sometimes, you know, it leads you, again, Edward Snowden's a perfect example, or someone, or you know, many other people. Really comes down to that, again, this is why I say this takes experience. This isn't something that just comes to you on day one. This is something that takes, you know, experience and meticulous, how should I put this? It takes research as well as finding the right people to help talk to, that can, you know, you can get off of their point of view, so that way that you can get a right go down the right footing. If that makes sense.
Very quick plug for Jesus here. He said, when it comes to the end times, watch and pray. That's a vigilance, diligence thing, you know, because deception is the art of war, really. That's the key. Leading people astray, sleight of hand. And I think we need to be aware of those factors as well.
It's the IDF's motto, war by deception.
Yeah, that's you mean the Mossad?
Yeah, the IDF.
Yeah. It's Israeli Defense Force.
Yeah, it's It's
okay,
motto is war by deception.
Yep, exactly. That's how they've done things for decades. And that was part of the presentation that was actually planning to give, is their relation to the mainstream media. When they have control of the mainstream media, and we know they do, then they had, rather, I should say it like that. They were able to basically pull a wool over the public. That's what the media has always been for. I mean, let's take, for example, the USS Liberty. Not one single report of it, not even in the back pages of the New York Times or at the end of a segment on NBC or whatever. Not one single mention of it in the media. And that shows you deception.
Lyndon Johnson was quoted as saying, "I want that damn ship at the bottom."
Yeah, he was an Israeli puppet, just like several other presidents. Although it should also be known that not every president was a Zionist, because you have the globalists and / Marxists, and then you have the hardcore Zionists and the Israeli thirsters, and they're not always on the same page. They have their own agendas, and it's like true rival gangs that fight against each other. You know, they can get along, but occasionally there will be a turf war saying, hey, it's going to be going our way. And that's why, and that's actually part of why the deep state was never able to get their final legitimacy, their final plans off the ground, because they were always fighting against each other. Well, like sometimes they would get together, like I say, on 9/11. That was both sides of the aisle. They worked together for 9/11, for JFK, and most of these other big events. But other than that, you know, they're usually against each other. I'll give you an example. George Soros and Netanyahu, they always hated each other. FDR, a hardcore Marxist / globalist who worked for the cabal, he was dead set against the creation of the state of Israel. And that's why his death is very suspicious in 1945, because when he died and Truman came to power, the state of Israel was greenlit, because without American recognition, it wouldn't have happened. So that's just a couple of examples to show you that they're not always on the same page. And I just wanted to point that out because it's an important distinction before labeling everyone under the same camp. And also another thing I wanted to mention about the white hats. This is what Eisenhower's famous speech, his famous farewell speech in 1961, was all about. When he was warning us about the military-industrial complex, this is what he was talking about: the good guys, the white hats, the good guys in the military teaming up with a patriotic businessman and overthrowing the New World Order. And they knew this was always a possibility even back then. That's what he was warning about. I mean, just look. He didn't even write the speech. It was his brother, Milton Eisenhower, a hardcore UNESCO pusher, a hardcore communist, that was so bad that even his own state, even Eisenhower's own State Department, warned him not to mingle with him because of how much of a security risk he was. And then Malcolm Moose, another hardcore communist slash UNESCO pusher, president of 3 universities at different times. So these are the people that put the words in Eisenhower's mouth. So this is just to further show that, yeah, there have always been good guys behind the scenes, and that the New World Order has always been fighting against them.
Okay,
It's
Taylor, can you just give us now some reasons why, in your opinion, considered opinion, we're in a lot stronger position, according to the perspective you're bringing, than we might otherwise have imagined if we didn't have your perspective on it? What's a lot better in taking on board this perspective than, say, rejecting it? What's better? What's improved? What's better news for us?
Well, first off, I'll say that one good thing about being able to see things about being able to analyze things from my point of view is that you don't just sit there blackpilling yourself and thinking, oh, the end times are coming. Oh, this is the end. We're just waiting for it all. Oh, we need to rise up and all this crap. We need to have a military coup and all that. I'm not saying you guys do that. I'm just saying, people in general, a lot of people in general do this. And as far, a lot of things have changed. So many good things have happened, especially in the last few weeks since Trump has been overtly optically in office. We've had a lot of good things been happening. So it's not just, Trump's done nothing for us. Oh my God, he's done so many things that, he's done so many things for us. And by extension, because he's just the tip of the spear, so many good things have just happened. I'll give an example. First of all, who was the one that shut down Epstein's Island and the NXIVM cult, the sex cult? That was Jeff Sessions, head of the FBI under Trump. And then all the dirt from the Epstein's Island came to the good guys. I mean, it's like you got to consider this. If Bush, Clinton, Obama, none of them touched it. Would Hillary have touched it? Ghislaine Maxwell was at Chelsea Clinton's wedding, and her nephew and Ghislaine's nephew is part of the State Department, working in the Libya operation. So that tells you that if anyone else was in there, if Trump wasn't a good guy, that wouldn't have happened. And that's just one example. USAID was just signed into law by Trump to be cut off. And this was one of the main NGO slash quote unquote charitable organizations that was worldwide and was funding deep state control over other countries.
Money laundering operation.
Yep. Like the Ford Foundation, the Carnegie Endowment, the Rockefeller Foundation, etc. These NGOs. This is what we call the soft power. The people who go into other countries, they set up shop. And they let the traders from that country come swabbing to them, and then they work together with the globalists back at home to overthrow the governments. That's what orange revolutions are. That's what George Soros and his people always did in countless countries. This is what happened in Ukraine in 2014 and in 2004, Libya, etc. That's just one example. This also, the funding of schools, UNESCO. That's another one. The United Nations Educational Organization, which then is funneled down to the Department of Education, signed into law by Jimmy Carter. This has also been defunded, as well as, I'm sure you know about the Roe v. Wade. The DEI initiative has been shut down. The immigrants have been being sent back, and it may not be as visible over there in the UK or in certain other countries because because things usually have to be set up here in the US first because unfortunately the US has been pretty much the head of the world since the end of World War II. So it takes a little bit longer to trickle down over there. But the Q operation is a worldwide operation, as been said many times. Look at all the heads in these European countries who have been coming to power and gaining prominence in recent years, like say in Italy, in Argentina, and even the so-called Nazi group of Germany has been starting to become prominent. And I should also mention, and this is really and this really made me happy, was when I found this out, was that they are even undoing the perpetual cult-like story of the Holocaust and the World War II Hitler narrative. Even that is coming apart, although obviously that will take some time to fully undo. And this is a big one, as I'm sure you know. Another thing that just happened: South Africa, a country that was completely taken over by the communists in the late in the 90s, in the 80s and 90s, has been right now is starting to come back. The white farmers are returning to South Africa. I'm pretty sure you've had people on Jason's show, Rock Hunters News, talking about this actually, about the state of South Africa after that communist pig Nelson Mandela came to power in the.
Taylor, just at this point again, I know I've been giving you a bit of a grilling. I'd just like to ask you one question, and it's this: do you consider it would be better that a good person did a bad thing, or that a bad person did a good thing?
I would say that a good person did a bad thing, because if you have a good person, nobody's perfect. As you know, we're humans. We all make mistakes. We all do things that sometimes we regret, and it comes down to that. But if you have a bad person, then usually when they do a good thing, it's either for their own self-interest or because it's a mistake.
So I think you're spot on there, Taylor. Right. So let's follow the logic. So you believe in that essentially Trump's a good person. Yeah.
Of course, yes, absolutely.
So we should hope to see a few bad things then.
Well, I would say we've already seen a few bad things, unexpected things that I personally and many other people in the Anon movement have actually been critical of, that we're not really too much of a fan of. For example, this was a few months ago now, the fires down there, the fires in California, and the storm, I forget what the hurricane was. It was down in the Florida area, I believe. I forget the exact area. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
That's I take a bit of issues with that one, because most people that I know, including myself, have not been able to find the excuse necessary to justify that. We can see the good things that have come out of them, but is a good thing coming out of tons and tons of people suffering worth the cost? Like, does the end justify the means, kind of thing?
Great critical questions. I'm really impressed with your responses. They're two searching questions, Taylor, and you passed with flying colours, mate. And that's the kind of thing that we want in everybody, to be thinking clearly and critically, and to be open to acknowledging, in some ways it's better if Trump does the odd bad thing, because then it can't be too good to be true.
Exactly. No one's perfect. If you no one's sitting here saying that Trump is the next coming of Jesus or anything like that. No, nobody's saying that. But the thing is that this is a war. You have to remember that this whole thing is a war, and there are casualties in war, no matter how you try to slice it, no matter how you try to avoid it. It's unfortunate. It's an unfortunate reality. And the only thing that we can really do is just blame the bad guys for creating this situation to begin with, because if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't have to go through all this crap like we've had to in the last 4 years under the fake Biden administration. We've had to go through a lot of crap to undo all the evil that they set up. The UNESCO, the World Health Organization, all these things, mostly that have come out of the end of World War II, which, by the way, I will mention, the undoing of the historical account of World War II will go a big way to undoing all of this crap. Because here's a good saying: World War II is the foundation of the modern world, essentially. because everything that came out of that war is the things that we suffer under today. NATO.
So you're saying then that disclosure that has been missing, we have the Official Secrets Act in the UK, and that's used to cover a multitude of sins, so to speak. So what you're saying here is by blowing the cover off some of these historical positions, including the JFK incident, we are bringing about a degree of transparency that could restore confidence of the public in their leaders. That's what you seem to be saying.
Yes, the icebreaker. That's what we're currently waiting for. The icebreaker that will that will allow the river, the dam, for the dam to break, and for all of the stuff to happen, to all just come flooding in. Because right now, it's sped up a bit since Trump optically got in office. Like, we have, like, let's say at first we had like a faucet that was trickling down water, like little drips. We had a drip. Right now we have a river that's going fast, like you'd see in a regular creek or whatever, but not necessarily a huge flood. That's what we're waiting for, is the huge dam icebreaker, in order to just basically be able to say, okay, now we can do everything at once. We don't need to hold back anymore. And whether that's the JFK assassination reveals, 9/11, COVID, World War II, that remains to be seen. Personally, I think it's going to be the child sex trafficking, because that's above anything else is what will unite the people. Whether you're a libtard or a conservative or an evangelical or whatever, we can all agree, or at least most of us can agree, that that crimes against children constitute crimes against humanity. And that's going to be the uniting factor. And Q has mentioned this many times in his posts, as well as Trump and Elon Musk.
Yeah, well, good point, Taylor. Have you got any thoughts on that at this point, Paul, that you want to chip in?
No, what I was saying, when you were saying about the price that is being paid, is it worth it? When you were talking about doing bad things, millions of people dying and stuff, Madeleine Albright in an interview was asked those questions. You've invaded Iraq, millions of people have died, millions of children have died. Was the price worth it? And she said, yes, we believe the price was worth it.
Madeleine Albright, that's a disgusting pig. And thankfully she's gone. Oh, she's long gone. Ooh, Madeleine Albright. She's right up there with Elizabeth Warren and Hillary Clinton and freaking Victoria Nuland.
Well, that's where this is going, because all this was done, and it was done right in front of people's faces. All these quotes were all on mainstream media, yet people can see it, but they can't see it, and they can't join those dots. It's as if they're under a mass hypnosis, a mass delusion that they're doing right in front of people's faces, and they can't see it. It's amazing. It's amazing to me when people say, this is what we want to do. And then people say, when we've sat down and said, look, this is what they've done. No, you're a conspiracy nutter. No, this is their own white papers. Yeah. Read, this is what we wanted to do. When in 2009, when Bill Gates did his TED Talk with his famous equation, which was like P for population times CO2 times da-da-da-da, when you got to population, that's got to drop. And he said, with a good vaccination program and good reproductive health care, we can lower the population that was going to rise. So they were telling us what they wanted to do. And then he said, I'm investing into vaccines because a pandemic is going to be the next one. I only read what they wanted to do, and they said they was going to. They then got themselves into a position in 2020, Taylor, in that Biden fiasco administration. Yes. Well, fiasco to anybody who's watching it, but it was actually garnered to do that. That's what it was designed to do. That's why, with Trump, within them being in between Trump's administrations and Trump getting back in, it was like he can't lose this. And, we're going to go after this, we're going to have to go after. Bill Gates and Elon Musk agree on some things, but then Elon Musk will attack Bill Gates on certain things. So what this does is, for the people who are watching and listening, it creates that cognitive dissonance, because it's like watching a Punch and Judy show. Oh no, it isn't. Oh yes, it is.
Yeah.
And then people can't see the truth, and they have to do what you said very, very early on in this, was sitting and using that discernment. They've got to be able to see the puppet show and what they're doing, but then you've got to step back from that puppet show and say, well, who's controlling the puppets? Then step back again and say, who's controlling the puppeteers who are controlling the puppets? And we've got to keep going back and back and back. And what we see is bloodlines. It's been mentioned in the chat room about the white hats and the black hats. They're bloodlines. We've got to see where Trump's bloodline is coming from, which I know you kind of disagree with us on this, but his bloodline goes way back. Hillary Clinton, a descendant of Mark was saying earlier, I can't remember who it was, but these bloodlines go way back. They've never lost control. And these are going through all the empires where they've all come together to try and all in one, what's the word I'm looking for? When they've all got one purpose, but they all want to control it. So as they get closer and closer to that one purpose, you'll start to see them turning and stabbing each other. Now, what we're trying to say is, it looks like it could be possible that Trump is doing all this, because he's certainly doing good things. I've certainly seen some good things that he's done, but the chaos that he's inherited, he can't fail but to improve it. And when people see that improvement, they'll give them everything. It's like, they just decide, I can't, I'm confused, but he's done a good thing. And, he's done that, and he's done that. Well, Hitler was doing that. Hitler inherited a country in abject poverty. The unemployment rate was sky high. There's debauchery going on everywhere. Hitler came in, and they were willing to give up all those securities and freedoms for that security, I should say. So they were giving up all those freedoms to gain that security, and that's the dangerous aspect to this. That's all I'm trying to say, Taylor, that we've got to.
And let me chip in here, because what you said at the beginning there when you were summarizing, you described the bit that Jesus said, watch, because you said discern.
Fruit.
But he said, and pray.
Yeah.
And the thing about that is, you can watch with your eyes in your best mental acuity, and you can do your pattern recognition, and that'll take you so far.
Yeah.
But without the and pray, you're not going deep. There's something deep. There's a deeper element, a deeper rooting. We've got to, it's our human apparatus, and we've got to maximize that. But there's something deeper.
Yeah,
beyond.
You're reading the play,
yeah,
but you're not going into the character. You're just reading the play and then reading stuff out. When you get into the character and you see, if you put yourself in those characters, like method actors do when they channel those characters, because you can name them: Heath Ledger, Christian Bale, Jack Nicholson, Jim Carrey in particular. The amount of characters that he's done, and he says, I don't even know who Jim Carrey is anymore, because when those characters come in, because you're emptying yourself, you are filling up with things, and they can change personalities. These aren't like mythical things that people make up to have a go at people. These are real things. The actors themselves. Denzel Washington, when he did 12 Years a Slave, there's a part in that where he acts as he's been whipped and all that. And he said himself, I couldn't have acted that part. I had to channel the spirit of my ancestors. And I channeled that spirit of my ancestors, and that's how I came out. So all these actors, what we're watching, you keep saying we're watching a film, and we are watching a film, and these characters believe that they are who they say they are. If you look at Heath Ledger, for instance, the scene where, I can't remember his name, is it Harvey, who's Two-Face with Heath Ledger? He's in a hospital bed, and Heath Ledger comes in, and he said that was like minutes in the movie. He said, but it took hours to film, because Heath Ledger would come in and he'd growl at himself and walk up and down pacing, and the camera would be rolling, ready for when he just went poof, straight into character.
Now here we go. If you're watching a film, you're just a spectator. It means you're passive.
Yeah.
One of the things that the truth movement has always, at its best, got back to, we need to become participants, right? We need to become stakeholders and co-creators of our reality. Because if we're not agents of our own change, we're sat there watching the movie. So we've also got to think about ways in which we can participate. So with Q, regardless of the legitimacy or otherwise, we need to be able to step up and create cultures, because politics can't solve all our problems.
Let me, if I can interject.
Go on, Taylor.
If I can interject, I actually want to address that exact point that you just made about getting involved and doing things yourself instead of just waiting for people. Instead of just waiting. Well, that's exactly one thing that I've been trying to do. For one, you know, coming on the show and presenting information, but also, man, now
you need a vaccine, mate.
Yeah, need the COVID vax. But so one thing that you can definitely do in order to help out and do your part is there's a couple books that I've seen have been really helping to wake people up, as much as I hate using that term, for lack of a better term, waking people up, getting them involved, getting them informed, and getting them knowledgeable on what's going on. There's two, really three, but mainly two books in particular that you can read in an hour each that are definitely worth just getting a bunch of copies and giving them to people. Like, I don't know, just like putting them on, like if you're at an appointment, a doctor's office or whatever, putting it on a desk, or if you're at work, leaving it on like your advisor's desk or whatever, you know, giving them out. Or you can even sell them for the money back, or you can buy the PDF and then give it out to people online. I've done that with you, Webby.
Yeah.
And these books are really, really helpful when it comes to informing people, and because they're not just books, they're weapons used because, you know, at the end of the day, we're activists, we're not academics. So, you know, getting the information out there, and, you know, if people don't want to look at them, that's their issue. But, you know, putting it in front of them, getting them curious, and even if it takes like a few months, even if it takes like 6 to 8 months or whatever, eventually they might come back and tell you, wow, all this stuff that you told me before, it's actually right.
Well, what we've found is that, as particularly since 2020 and the pandemic kicked in, there was a lot of people who had time on their hands to do that research. And, you know, a lot of them have found that they wanted to do the research so they could ram it down people's throats who were saying, don't have that, don't do this. And they wanted to prove people wrong. And many people who I've spoken to was proved, it bounced back on them that they just saw these chinks of light that started to make them think differently. Now, we've always said, haven't we, that most people will do nothing, Taylor, until it starts to affect them and their lives. They're not interested. You know, all of a sudden, 10 years ago, I'm telling people that, look, you shouldn't be paying for your utility bills. You should be setting them off using this instrument. Oh, I'm not bothered with that. I'll just keep paying. I can't do that. All that kind of stuff. We get to 2022, Taylor, and they hike all the utility bills up. Again, they're doing it in April. We've got a thing called council tax. I don't know if you've like property rates or something like that. Now, the council tax doesn't apply to private, ordinary houses. It only applies to commercial. But because of how we've been trained to act in this system, we register the property and it could be commercial. So under presumption of their law in the system, they just presume everybody's property is deemed commercial. So they charge a tax. You can't charge a tax on something that doesn't have any revenue coming through it. It's stupid. They're attacking private people. But the system doesn't recognise a private man or woman. They only recognise the person and they dismiss the man. We have spent, not just we, but many others have gone 10, 15 years and some even longer. You know, 30, 40 years ago, they were talking about this and nobody understood it. Nobody cared because life was at least agreeable on some levels for most of it. But as we see now, they're getting to the point, Taylor, where They're trying to get blood from a stone, and they're provoking something. They're not just poking the bear, they're kicking it, they're spitting at it and everything. They want people to stand up and do something, and they're ready for any violence. That's why we've got to go about it differently. We've got to think. But people are now being put into a position where they're reacting, and they're going backwards to look at stuff from 10 years ago and trying to use that in court. 10 years ago, we knew it didn't work. So we have to discern what is factual, what could work, what are remedies, what remedies have we got, and we need to find out the remedy that we want. How do we get there? Is it plausible? You know, you went through all those tests to find out what was a fact. That's where people have got to start doing it. It's only now that they can't afford to keep their head under the parapet or keep their head in the sand that they're coming out, and it's a good and a bad thing, because the chaos that's there, nobody can find out what the middle line is, and that works really well for the system. So when somebody comes along like Trump did, and possibly Farage over here, I've got the solution. It's this. I know you don't like this, so we'll do this, and I know you don't like that, so we'll do that. That's how they do it, and they don't need everybody to follow them. They just need fulcrums. They just need that tipping point. You know, not everybody goes and votes. Dennis said in the chat room several times he's never voted because he doesn't believe in the voting system. Now, I've heard people say, well, you don't have a right to question them because you didn't vote. You can't question what's happened. Why do you vote for the better of two evils? It's a silly concept. You know, you walk into a room, somebody's going to shoot you in the face, somebody's going to stab you in the face. You're still going to get hurt. Well, if I get stabbed, I might survive. So I'll put up with that because there's nothing else. You've got independents who might say, I mean, I've sat with loads of councillors who were running for local council elections. I said, start telling people about this economy. It's a debt-based economy. They're creditors. They understand those words, but they don't understand how they act. Yeah. So it throws everything into more chaos. And then when you do stand there and say, look, this is what's working, people can hear the words, but they don't hear them. It's having knowledge and not knowing what to do with it.
Well, here we go, right? Shore to shore tonight. I think you become established as our transatlantic correspondent, Taylor. Can you sum up for us in 3 minutes, taking some of these points that Paul's made and building on this theme of activism, giving us some sort of positive message about, from an American perspective, what you think the American public can do, first of all, because the tide is turning in the American populace's favour, not so much in this country. So what should we as Brits mostly be looking at to follow an example of what you guys should be doing across the pond?
Well, first of all, I'll preface this by saying I don't want to give a 100% recommendation because I don't live there. And so I don't have everything from your particular viewpoint. So, you know, this comes down to me just giving advice and you know, rolling off of it from your perspective. But if I were to give my advice, say, first of all, what's the name of the guy that's Trump is endorsing? I forget his name. Mirage. Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
Nigel Farage.
Yes. So I would say I don't want to use the term put your faith in him because that just sounds that sounds a little too it doesn't sound right.
Yeah.
But you know, I'd say look at him and you might find somebody that's actually on your side, because in every country on planet Earth, the Trump, not Trump, but the good guys have been working in every country to get a good guy in charge as either prime minister or whatever, you know. And most of these key players like Netanyahu, Macron, Trudeau, these people are long gone, and it's just about killing their actors. But the thing is that you also have to put in charge of a good person in the leader position. And this is what's happened. Again, it happened in Italy. It's happened in Argentina. It's slowly happening, it's building up in Germany and the UK. So I would just say, look at that and see, this is probably the good way that we can go. And also, I should say, we won't have to worry about that much longer about the whole debt-based economy anymore. That's going to be going away soon. That has been promised to be done away with. There's a Q post that it's one of his last Q posts, and it's one of the last posts, and he says, "End to the endless, 1913." What happened in 1913? The Federal Reserve. There you go.
And what will it be replaced with?
Well, this has already been addressed. You
said there's going to be gold and all that. But how does that trickle down to you? How does it trickle down to me and Alex?
Well, as I said, I don't want to make exact predictions about 100% about everything that's going to happen. But we do know the general outline that the debt-based economy system is the Roth. I'm going to call it the Rothschild system because that's really what it is. The Rothschild system is being replaced worldwide. And it's going to be replaced with an actual monetary system that favors commerce, that favors hard work, and that favors merit, instead of just you get free money from the government because you applied for something or whatever. We're going to eventually do away with all the Social Security stuff as well. So that's although that will probably come a little bit later. Because you have to get the people prepared first mentally for that, because we've had these economies for a long time.
Brilliant. Right. Okay. So let's pull it all together. Right. Simple answer here, Taylor. It seems to me that you passionately believe that we're on the crest of a golden age. Yeah.
Yes. Now, and in fact, I would say we've actually already started that golden age, as Trump has
brilliant. Said. Right. So what I want to do is invite all the keyboard warriors now. It's either in the chat, golden age or age of lead. Because the alchemists used to say the whole point was to turn lead into gold. So even though lead's got a value, that's why they steal it off roofs still. Compared to gold, it's still got a relatively minor value. So we consider lead based. So, let's get some typing in chat here. Do people actually believe, get some feedback? Are we on the crest of a golden age or age of lead? And maybe we'll give that a couple of minutes to see what people think and do a bit of a.
To be fair, I would rather have a lead age than what we currently have anyway. So even if it is
something that's worse than lead, maybe. But it'd be interesting to get people's feedback about what do people really feel. You've heard Taylor's account. You've heard it before. He's crystallised it here under questioning. What do you guys think? Is it a golden age that we're on the verge of? Or is it this shadow version of it?
And we are seeing in the chat room, Taylor, that people expected you to be in a suit and tie for this correspondence job tonight.
I don't have a suit and tie. I'm sorry. You're gonna if you want a truly professional setup for a video cam, I'm sorry, you're gonna have to look elsewhere because I don't have that. I'm just a dude in a room telling you how it is from here in America. I'm sorry.
Well, that's exactly what we want, mate. So, we'll speak to you. We'll put you in the green room. We'll speak to you when we come offline, and we'll have a bit of a chat about for next week. All right, mate.
Well, before that, I'd like you. I've had something presented in the thing for you to show, and I would like to show that just real quick. It won't take a few seconds.
Have you got it on the right screen? Because before I click on it, all I can see is that's better. Because if I'd have clicked on it, all we'd have seen is me and Alex and you. So
okay, yeah, there you go. Okay, so do you have it shared? Because I can't see my screen now.
It's on, mate.
Okay, so this is the first book, and I should also mention that these books, what they do, is they present all the information in a way that even a normie can understand. It keeps things simple without being simplistic, if that makes sense to you guys.
Yeah, that's the way it should be. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's why I recommend these. This one, Crash Course NWO, 250 Years of the Globalist Conspiracy in Just 1 Hour, outlines the New World Order, the Deep State. So basically, it outlines the problem that we've had for the last 200 plus years of the Deep State. Basically, defines the Deep State, tells you everything, all the main points you need to know about it. Can be read in an hour or less. I personally read it in 40 minutes, and you can get it right here on Amazon. You can also get it as a PDF as well. And the second book is the Secret Plan to Save Humanity, a summary of the Q operation and the rise of Commander Trump, which is basically the first book is outlining the problem, and this one is outlining the solution. And also, these are weapons to give out to people because they can be read in under an hour, and they present the information, as I said, simple but not simplistic, so that anyone can understand. And even if it takes a while for them to get back to you, at the end of the day, it still gets done. And I've seen many positive results. Personally, in my experience, I've seen many, and from others, reading others' experience as well, is that these are weapons, and for us activists in order to help people. And just as a little bonus for you guys, because I know you love to talk about Jesus and all that all the time. Here's one that you guys would probably be interested in: the Divine Selfie, a crash course on the Jesus Shroud of Turin, which is, I think, This subject is not really one that I'm knowledgeable in, but I feel like that you guys would probably be a lot more knowledgeable in this subject. And so, yeah, I just wanted to present that.
Thanks for the recommendation, and it was good that you tied it up that way.
Yeah, and it was good that it was easy to share as well. What I would say is those things that you've shared with us there, put the links, not in the chat room, put the links underneath the description.
It won't let me do that. Remember, I tried that before and it didn't work. So the only thing I can do is send them to you, and then you put them either in as a highlighted comment or as in the description of the video.
I'm sorry. I thought you could now. You got your spanner. I thought you could do that, but
nah, it won't let me. I've tried. Trust me, I've tried.
Email them to me, and I'll put them in the description box then.
Okay, sounds good.
Great contribution, Taylor. Much appreciated. Quite a lot of thanks and gratitude coming in from the chat as well.
Yeah. I thank you. I appreciate you giving me the chance. I didn't really get to do the presentation that I was planning to, but hey, this was a good stuff.
It was never going to be that, Taylor, because we're in a secret place, aren't we?
Yeah.
So we've got another meeting now just as we finish this. So.
Yeah.
That's why we were only going to do an hour, but because you were organised and you had everything sorted, we just ran over a little bit. That's all.
That's fair, understandable. It is your show.
I'll speak to you in a second, mate. Okay. All right. Thanks again, Taylor. Speak to you in a minute.
Cheers, buddy.
Yep, and thanks everyone in the chat. Take care. Godspeed.
God bless. So, what do you reckon in closing?
Yeah, well, I don't think we ever have a script. It's like we've got a menu, right? You go down to the Chinese or the Indian, or you fancy an Italian.
Indian.
There you go. We know we have a range of stuff. I'm not like keen on tapas, but we start off in one place, we seem to go somewhere else, and then we end up somewhere else, and it kind of works.
It does, yeah.
And as long as it does work and people are getting value from it, and again, we'd encourage people. I think we'll get back to that point where. Again, we'll get people on as well on the plenary. Just not possible tonight, but in a week or two, we want to hear some other voices again.
Yeah.
Sometimes we'll check in and say, like I tried tonight impromptu, didn't go down very well. Type that in the chat. Good to see you all non-conformists. I think one or two people did. Good on you. Keep it up. But at the end of the day, it's just trying to encourage participation. We want people involved. We want to know your opinion. This is not just a two-string violin. We need all the voices. All the music coming in together, because if we don't get that, it's one-dimensional.
Iron sharpens iron.
Yeah.
Iron sharpens iron. We've we sit around and we talk a lot about all this stuff, but people are now engaging a lot more. Anybody who does want to come on, message me or Alex, email us, whatever, and if you want to come on and you've got things to say, we'll send you the link and you can come on. You can do a presentation like Taylor's going to. Be on point, be on topic, and have something to say. Be open to the criticism, because we've been open to much criticism because of it. you know, the people in the chat room are always brilliant when they come on. They always create debate with a bit of wit and humour as well. But it's about, when we leave this, it's about talking to people who don't. I was only in the e-shop sorting my phone out, and we went from sorting my phone out and possibly getting cheaper internet to the woman saying, oh, I'm sick of these bills going up. All of a sudden, I'm in like Flint telling about the debt-based economy, and then we end up with witnessing about how I found Jesus because of all the lies. I only found the truth in one place, and I've said, well, okay, I'll hold this up. Nobody comes and debunks it because when they try, the answers are there. They've been trying to debunk it for so long. And I could see as a book, as knowledge, as information, I saw it stand out. But it wasn't, it's what we said earlier about having all that information, but no discernment. When you've got that discernment, you just know that there's something special that's going on in this world. And, you know, at some point we've got to try and come together, and we've just got to keep talking about it. As I said before, you know, we've had some great numbers on here tonight. We're getting regular viewers every week, and we've got people who watch it on playback through the week, and we're getting loads of good feedback. So if you like this stuff, click the like button, subscribe, join in. If you don't like us, click off. Just sling it. Doesn't matter to us. Me and Alex said that we'd sit here and just talk to ourselves, because it's about, it's cathartic, isn't it? It's cathartic when we just sit and chat and talk. We get a lot of, we join dots, and it's not dots that don't connect. The dots all connect. If you think they don't connect, don't just call us names.
Chuck some more dots in,
and then show us where the dots should go, or not, or click off. Thanks again, guys.
Yeah.
God bless. See you next week. Interesting that.
Oh my goodness!
A job well done, mate. I'm sorry to take you off the script, but it felt like it'd be good to get the clarification. Just questions of method, because when people and you did, I mean, funnily enough, you did describe a lot of Chomsky's method. So that's how he advocated doing it. So it was spot on that, and it was very helpful for people. It means they can engage with you better as well, rather than just try to shoot you down because they don't agree with what you say.
Fair enough. That's understandable. And I'm glad that I was able to get things across right, because you know, I always worry that I'm not good at being presenting in my viewpoint of presenting things. So, you know,
you hit the nail on the head earlier. You're just a dude. You're just a dude in America telling us how it's like it is for you lot. Just an ordinary fella. We don't expect you to come on here because we're certainly not professional and stuff like that. But what you always tended to do was you got distracted with the chat room, which would take you off subject. And that's what some people in the chat room come on to do that to you, Taylor. Yeah. You know what Dinny's like. You know what Jimmy's like. Not Jimmy.
Oh, yeah.
So they try and wind you up. I mean, Dinny was mithering, saying, does he not like Hitler anymore?
I saw that shit, and I'm like, Dinny, get your drunk old ass back on that fucking wheelchair and start talking shit.
He's never gonna do it. He's done it all his life, mate. He's done it all his life.
Well, we were just really acting a bit like journalists in asking questions. It's like a journalist on a TV correspondent asking somebody it gives that focus, even though they can be a pain and create tension and hassle sometimes. A good journalist will ask you the probing questions, and it helps to keep it all on track. You did a cracking job in answering those questions, mate.
Yeah, thanks. And yeah, I agree. It's good to be able to clarify and ask questions, and because if you're asking the question, then you're clearly wanting a piece of information from me that I haven't presented. So so it is helpful for that reason.
It's not just that, as we said earlier, iron sharpens iron.
Yeah.
So when we ask you those questions, you are forced to articulate it more to the point. And when you put it more to the point, something drops with you as well. And next time that point comes up, you do it like that.
Yeah.
That's how you train yourself to do it.
Thanks, I appreciate that. And I should also mention that I forgot to mention this during the show, that there is a website that I definitely recommend people take a look at as well. Because I don't, because the thing is, I don't want people to take my word at face value. I want them to, as I said, be able to do their own research and look into things themselves, and hopefully come to the same conclusions that I have. But if they don't, then that's on them.
It is what it is. But that's what I mean when you just say, "Oh, watch a video," people will just dismiss you. But when Alex drags you back and says, "Well, why should we watch that video? What's in it?" Articulate it, and then you do a bit of a hook.
Yeah.
A bit of a clickbait to get, all right, I'll prove Taylor wrong.
Yeah.
That type of thing. Even I'll prove Taylor wrong. I'll go and look. And then, as we said earlier, when they go and look, all of a sudden they go, oh, hey, there's something in this. They might not necessarily agree, but they can't debunk you either. And what that does is it leaves it as information. If they're not going to be a dot joiner, they're never going to do it anyway. So
the other thing with that is as well, when you suggested 2 1-hour reads, it wasn't the fact that it was 1-hour reads. You made the case for it's a 1-hour read. In other words, if you invest an hour of your time, you may get a payoff.
Yeah.
And you're implying that if they don't do it, that's their choice. But you've confronted them with something that's easily digestible, like you said, easily accessible, and we're going to even provide the link for you. It takes away their excuses to try and shoot you down just because they don't like your face, or they try on the cat's tail and it scratched them.
Yeah, it's like, if I try to make it, I try to make it as easy as possible. And, and a lot of people wouldn't do that. They'll just say, oh, go do it yourself. But, I'm nice enough to say, hey, look, I'll help you out. I'll give you the link or I'll give you the information.
That's right.
They facilitate people, and that's what I'm trying to do.
So,
if you did it all for them, no.
They wouldn't appreciate it.
I can't hold their hand, basically.
They don't appreciate it if you do it for them anyway. So Taylor, that link, what you're saying to the video and the links to those books, email them over to me and I'll add them into the description. All right, mate.
Yeah, actually, that's how I'm doing. Actually, as we speak, I'm doing that right now.
Okay. Well, I'm away this week, so don't get disappointed if they don't get added straight away. But they'll be on. And what I would suggest is, as we get past the halfway point of this week, check out the show on YouTube and look at the comments, because there may be more and more comments for you. I can't screenshot them all, but I thought that was specific because he thanked me and Alex.
Yeah.
But then he said it was great listening to you.
Yeah.
Now that is totally different from when you was on Raconteurs.
That's a shift.
Where you didn't know how to articulate it. You're getting it. You've done your own presenting as well. That's all learning. That's all training. You just keep putting it out. I've seen some of your stuff that have come out. I watched the JFK one. I've seen it before, but it's all interesting to see. We're now seeing JFK. There's a midnight ride that's on. No, the midnight ride was last night. There's an FOJC one on tonight, and it's about JFK and how Trump is linked with that and what he's doing. So that's going to be an interesting insight as well, because the great researchers, David Carrico and John Pounders.
Trump was best friends with JFK Jr. when he back in the day. They weren't just optics; they were close. And so, my personal opinion is that what Trump decided that there was time to do something about this as soon as JFK Jr. His plane went down.
Yeah.
Right.
All right, mate. We're gonna go. have to go and do this meeting now. But great show. Thanks for coming on, mate. I'll speak to you through the week, and I'll see you next week.
Okay. And thanks again for having me on. I appreciate it. And I'll send you the links when I'm done. All right.
God bless, Taylor. Take care.
Mate.
Yep. God bless. And thanks again.
Bye-bye, mate. Stick light on.